We're live.
Hello, Facebook. Hello, LinkedIn. We are live. So I don't know if it is where you are, guys, but it's certainly a little bit of a grey, drizzly old day here on the South Coast. So we are here bringing some sunshine, aren't we?
We're going to try. Positivity, smiley faces.
Yeah. We weren't trust at all when we found out that some of the GU team were on various courses and had appointments today, and it was just us three.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
So we've been let loose, haven't we? We've been let loose on Christina's LinkedIn. So if you're on LinkedIn, on Christina's feed and can see us, so say hi. And hopefully our Facebook friends will be joining us as well. They can see us, so drop us a note, let us know you are with us. And of course, as usual, if you've got any marketing questions, you can put them in the comments as well.
Yeah.
So right, I need to press a button there. Oh no, I don't want to show that.
Oh
no. We are using StreamYard, so if you post a comment, I can bring it on screen. So just demoing this new technology that we are using.
You were supposed to do that, Amanda, weren't you?
I was.
It was all planned.
How is everybody this week?
Good. Yeah, good. I feel like it's been one of those weeks where I have quite a lot to do and I start something, but then for whatever reason, I can't finish it. So now it's Thursday and I have quite a lot to do this afternoon and tomorrow. So I'm a bit stressed, but I think it will be fine. I'll focus.
Bank holidays, you just try and squeeze 5 days work into 4, don't you? And it's...
Yeah, exactly. I think that's the thing. So I was there's a couple of things that I needed to do that we didn't quite have the right accesses to and all this type of thing. So now I feel like I have to do everything in one day, but that'll be fine. Apparently I read an article, people work better under pressure. So that's what I'm going with.
Excellent. We're all good then, aren't we?
Yeah. Mark, did you say that we're not live on Facebook?
Unless it's just popped on. No, it's come up now.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah,
it's fine. Christina won't tell us now.
I've got it. I don't know about you guys, but there's been I feel like there's been a definite shift this week in kind of it's obviously back to school this week. So you've only got to open up the Facebook feed and there's lots of pictures of smiley / not smiley children looking grumpy going back to school. So so you can't miss that. So it's back to school this week. It's back to work for a lot of people who've been on holiday.
Yeah, or furlough.
Back from furlough for a lot of people. Yeah. So even though we're depleted today, so we better tell everybody where everyone is rather than just saying they're not here, they're busy. Because obviously they would love to be joining us. But Jane is sorting out her youngest, her little beloveds who are back to school this week, so today and this week. And I think it's not straightforward. You know, we are the non-parental ones in the group, but from what I can gather, there is lots of labeling of clothes and all sorts of things to contend with. So it's not just here's your uniform, off you go, kids.
Apparently, Jane was saying as well, isn't it? So they're getting a COVID briefing that they get sent. I don't know if that applies across all schools, like Amanda said. We don't have children, but I imagine it might. I don't know, but I think it's a bit more complicated than here's your lunchbox, have a good day.
Yeah,
a bit more responsibility.
I imagine that partially Jane's not here because she will be then sending her children off, waving them goodbye, and then running around the house celebrating and opening the gin. Going, they're back to school, thankful.
Jane. Thank
you for that.
Hashtag. Is there a video playing in the background? Because I can hear. Can anyone else hear that? Or is it
I can hear an echo. I think it might be the sound on.
Oh, okay. Oh, that's fine.
One of our
fine.
Screens.
I wasn't sure if I clicked on because I've got an article open. I suddenly panicked thinking it might be me, but it's fine. Don't worry.
Good. Thank you for checking, Emily. So, so that's where Jane is today, and we've got some. You know, we've as I said, we've certainly noticed the back to school, back to work feel, haven't we, in the business? Have you felt like more people are getting in touch with you, and is it ramped up?
Yeah, it's this week. There's been probably different inquiries coming in already, even though it's a short week. I think once we get that sort of bank holiday out of the way, then that always seems to be a catalyst anyway. Perhaps perhaps with the situation that we're coming out of anyway, that'll even, make things a bit more busy for a lot of people over sort of September and October as they start to get back to a bit of working normality, if there is such a thing at the moment. So yeah, fingers crossed it continues.
Yeah.
I think in general it sort of picks up around this time, doesn't it, Mark? And I know with team and things, they start having their meetings again around now, I believe.
Yeah. I think
obviously I don't quite know what's happening like in terms of online and things, but I think everything in general does start to ramp up before Christmas.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So you're right. Event season kicks off again. So it'll be, what will it be? We'll have different online events coming up. We've got a recruitment agency virtual expo coming up for that sector, which is always a biggie. So what would be in-person events are now kind of moving online. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how they work. Obviously, there were a couple that have already happened, isn't there? I think. Did you go to one, or I know there was one recently.
I think a lot of things
quite
have
well.
come off over August, so that's kind of made a bit of a difference. And then it usually ramp back. And we've even though we are depleted today, but you've got 4 people. What else do you do?
Cool kids.
Cool kids are here. But we had some of our social mediators who technically run their own businesses, but they contract to us. We put some work out to them and work with them, and they're back. So hi Helen, she's back from voluntary furlough, so we're certainly back to full strength as well. So it's nice to have everybody back in the room. Christina she's not pondering. So if you watched last week, we had a bit of an in-depth kind of self-analysis last week, didn't we? We're looking at Christina's personality profile and what that all meant. But she is not with us this week, but it's not because she's reflecting on that, Paul, and she's not randomly out cuddling people. She is actually on a Facebook advertising course, so she's doing some professional development today. I'm just going to go up to the I'm worried it's me that's causing the echo. But yeah, so she's out doing some Facebook ads, and we were just debating. So Emily, what would you say your level of knowledge on Facebook ads is?
I'd say it was moderate to average. I have moderate to average.
Oh, right. Okay.
No, I have a fair amount of experience in it, but it's something that I sort of dip in and out of here and there. So I know sort of the basis is obviously how to set up campaigns and ads and that type of thing, and sort of the location settings and the regulations around the adverts, I guess. But I gain all of my knowledge from Christina and Jane. So if I have a question, I go to them. But I think it's something that, obviously it's definitely something that has taken off recently. From our experience, it does work very well. We've sort of had, I know Christina always sort of says that she's trialed like the LinkedIn advertising and that type of thing. She hasn't seen as good results from that as she has from Facebook. And from sort of campaigns and things that I've run for other clients, I've definitely found personally that Facebook works better. It's much more targeted, and you can sort of choose the locations and everything like that. But yeah, I would say, back to the question, moderate to average.
I would probably agree with you as well. I'm moderate, sort of moderate level of knowledge on Facebook ads. I think, and funnily enough, I've been having a lot of conversations about this with people over probably the last 6 weeks, 2 months. So, maybe as people are looking really closely at business development for the end of the year, how do they go about doing it? Because it is quite hard to grow a community or a following organically. So, when we say organically, it's just kind of day-to-day posting, isn't it? So, it's increasingly hard to do that without putting a bit of money behind it.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's, obviously we have our tactics and it's definitely possible, but I think if you want to have that extra push, then Facebook advertising has been proven to work very well. And if you have something specific that you do want to advertise, maybe it's a job vacancy or something like that, it's definitely worth it, in my opinion, I think.
Yeah. I love how targeted you can be.
Yeah.
You can literally just drop a pin, as you say. So if you're doing some local work or even it doesn't matter if you're a national business. Sometimes it's better to target people right on your doorstep, because you can come up with some targeted imagery, drop a pin in Daventry or in Bristol or Birmingham, wherever you might be.
Yeah.
Choose a radius, choose demographics, what people's interests are. So you can choose whether you want male, female, which age group. Obviously, if you're using it for recruitment, you have to be really careful about being exclusive. So you need to make sure you are inclusive. You can't just try and market a job role to specific sectors.
Yeah.
But I love how you can put in people's interests. So you can put in, if you're a gym or something, or outdoor activities, you can say, I want people who are interested in hiking, nature, whatever it might be, which is
I mean, not within the business, but obviously I use it for the band and things. So for actually promoting events. So it can be as simple as essentially getting things out there to our own audience, but also then, yes, using sort of either geographical filters. If we're playing in a different location, we can, go to that sort of area, or, interest things. So if people are interested in a certain type of music, we can target that as well, and then sort of refine it down. It definitely does help once we're allowed out to play again as well.
Yeah, exactly.
So it'll be something we will continue to use in the band anyway.
Quite literally allowed out to play.
Yeah, I mean, it's a difficult situation at the minute, because I think we're just a pub band, so we're reliant on the pubs being able to fill out, basically, in terms of getting the numbers in there. So there's a few little gigs happening, acoustic gigs and things, but they're very much obviously socially distanced, only a few people, and it doesn't work for, well, perhaps a little bit more raucous band like we perhaps are.
Yeah,
needs that vibe.
Rock and roll.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Love it. So we're fans of Facebook marketing, and I think if you're watching this and you haven't tried it yet, naturally it depends on your business sector and your audience. So, I guess our advice is always, if you are, if you're a very corporate business, you're targeting kind of execs, maybe you're targeting sort of, I don't know, high profile consultants and doctors. So typical audience that wouldn't spend a lot of time on Facebook, then no, it's probably not right for you, is it? Maybe LinkedIn is worth looking at, particularly if you've got high value items, I'd say. So again, as you say, we don't always talk about getting a great ROI from LinkedIn adverts, but if that's your audience, daily budget is much higher, isn't it, on LinkedIn than it is compared to Facebook?
Yes, it is. Yeah, I think it's, I can't remember now, but it's definitely a lot higher than it is on.
I was going to say, put you on the spot.
I know. I want to say £10, but I think it's more than that.
It's you're right. It's $10. I think it's $10 though, because it's US based, so it's $10. So depending on the exchange rate, it's like £7 or £8 pounds on LinkedIn. Minimum daily spend versus £1 on Facebook. So obviously there's a big differential. But if your average cost per lead or average sale is thousands, then why not? Why wouldn't you invest in Facebook, in LinkedIn? Sorry. Yeah, absolutely.
I think, like you said, Amanda, if that's where your target audience is, then obviously it does make sense. But it's just something that for the sort of types of advertising that we do, necessarily, it probably works better on Facebook most of the time. But then if we do have sort of like a recruiter that does have a more high profile job, then it's definitely worth looking into, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's the long answer and debate around where Christina is today. So she's doing some of her continuous professional development and doing super advanced LinkedIn, Facebook advertising. So we are, I think you and I are probably going to be hankering after what she's learned and seeing what we can.
I know. I think with Facebook advertising, it's one of those things. I always find it's very difficult to say, like Christina always says, in marketing and social media, it's very difficult to claim that you're an expert in it, because it's constantly evolving, it's constantly changing. And whilst I am confident in my level of knowledge, and if someone asked me to do something and put together a campaign, I'd be able to work out and I'd be able to do it because I have done it before. I couldn't claim that I was an expert in it, because there's so much to learn and there's so many changes. So you might learn something, and then, to say, for instance, on the new Facebook layout, it's completely different, and you just have to navigate and learn your way around it again. So I think it's great, sort of, obviously, that Christina is is going to those things. She's always been our fountain of knowledge for Facebook advertising. And Jane, to be fair, Jane's very good.
Jane is,
she is very good.
Super good at it as well. So
yeah,
and you're right. And I think people will talk about what they know works and what doesn't work. So funny enough, I was having a discussion with somebody who said, I was told that without fail you should put emojis in your Facebook ads. And I was a bit cynical about that, saying I wouldn't say without fail. There's a time and a place. Again, if it's, don't just jam a random emoji in there for the sake of it.
It's completely inappropriate.
Exactly.
I think it's about trial and error as well. That's something that I found with Facebook. So quite often when I'm setting up ads, I will run 2 ads consecutively, maybe one with a still image, one with a video or something like that. And then you can just keep going in, can't you, and just checking which one's doing better. And you can always turn off the one that isn't doing as well. So maybe test that theory if it is appropriate, put in a few emojis and see if that one does better. And if it does, then you know that your audience likes emojis.
That's it. Well, that's it. And that's the beauty of it. As you say, you can you can just pop in and change it, tweak it, see what's working, see what's not, turn it off. If you just kind of go, actually, no budget, we've maxed out this month. You can set your parameters, but you can just turn it off when it's not working, which I think is fantastic, and you get instant results. So I turned some ads on Friday for a company I'm working with. Friday morning, keen to catch the bank holiday, kind of web traffic, social traffic. By Tuesday morning, they'd gained over 50 followers over the weekend, had some proper hardcore tangible inquiries as well to say, can we book on this? Can we follow up with that? So, which is great. So some, you see and feel the benefits straight away.
Yeah.
If you think about print ads, so magazines, newspapers, things like that, people just don't spend that much time reading magazines and newsletters anymore. A banner ad, great, maybe for a bit of branding, but
I think it's more I guess like with social media in general, it's very instant, isn't it? That's kind of the point of it. So Facebook advertising is instant. Like, I don't think that's to say that under the right circumstances, sort of advertising in newspapers and magazines and stuff isn't going to work. I think it does work, but it's much harder to sort of what's the word I'm trying to think of, to calculate the return on investment for that.
It's sometimes it's one of those things where you need that multi-touch point as well. So they can work in tandem together as well. But also we know from ourselves, from some of the advertising that we do for Green Umbrella, that it does work, but it does take a while sometimes to get those sort of inquiries back. Whereas if someone's got a link there that they can click, that can be more instant. But then that longer term sort of feed of information through a series of ads can also work still as well. But it's got to be done in the right way, and the message has still got to be right, whichever medium you choose.
You've been a sucker for a feed of email marketing campaigns, haven't you, Mark?
Sorry, say that again. Sorry.
I said you've been a sucker for a feed of email marketing campaigns, haven't you?
Well, you've got to.
South Africa.
For those who don't know, Mark and I are big rugby fans, and we're going on we're taking Green Umbrella on tour next year, aren't we?
Yeah, but I was thinking we could do live lunch from South Africa.
Oh my gosh, you actually live lunch international. That would be great.
We're going to
You need to get t-shirts.
Yeah,
we'll have tour t-shirts.
Yeah, Green Umbrella on tour.
What goes on tour stays on tour.
Absolutely. Yeah.
As you can tell, we are quite excited about this. And yes, we were suckers for the email marketing that came through and promoted it, weren't we?
Yeah. And I was looking yesterday when I got my emails, that basically as soon as that email come through, I knew that the packages I was looking for was on sale. So it was like, get in there quick. It was almost a trending product moment for Emily.
Trending product.
It was like, Heidi, quick, come on, we need to book now. Do we want this one? Let's go.
Oh my gosh. Now you understand why I get so affected by trending products. I am definitely a sucker.
And scarcity, that's another so trending products is the sort of psychology behind
things not
marketing,
being,
isn't it?
Yeah. 100%. Like
So,
limited, when it says only one of these.
Yeah.
I think, oh my gosh, I need that.
Buy now. Yeah.
And just for Chris Lambert online, obviously he knows that I'm not a Tigers fan, and Amanda is not a Tigers fan either, so it's all good.
No, you're in safe hands. Yeah. Don't worry.
Anyway, enough of rugby.
Yeah, we could probably do a whole live lunch on rugby, but I don't think that's not what people are here for, is it?
We'll save that till next year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What else this week? What's in marketing news? What have we picked up? What have we seen? I know, Emily, you had saw something interesting about Twitter.
Yes, I did. Now I might need to. I've sort of read up on it a little bit, but basically, what it's been saying is that Twitter is working on making the platform more inclusive, I guess, so for people with disabilities and that type of thing, so that it's easier for them to access and to use. So they mentioned, or they sort of announced, I guess, not mentioned, back in June about voice tweets. Which we haven't really seen sort of gain that much momentum, really. I don't think. I've seen a couple, and I think it's a brilliant idea, but for some reason, I don't know, that it hasn't really picked up. But they're now sort of putting a heavier focus on accessibility in general. So as far as I'm aware from what I've read, they're sort of creating 2 accessibility teams. So one of those is going to be working on sort of external factors, and the other one is going to be working on internal factors. They're going to garner or get a lot of feedback from people with disabilities as to where they can improve their platform in order to make it more accessible. And they're also working on automated captions for sort of videos and that type of thing, which, to be fair, in the article, it did mention that they are quite behind on that in comparison to other social media platforms. So I think Facebook released that in 2016, I think. And LinkedIn, I think it said they did something similar last year. So they are a little bit behind on that. But I think it's good that they're focusing on that. But yes, I do feel, in my personal opinion, that it's probably something that they should have already been looking at, to be honest. But yeah, now they have the teams. So hopefully, I think the idea they were sort of saying in the article is that they have these 2 teams, and then they have people from different sectors within Twitter, or different, I don't know, sections. So at every single meeting, whether it's sort of a product meeting or something like that, they're going to have, or an update meeting, they're going to have someone representing that team in that meeting. So there's always going to be sort of a voice there, sort of bringing it back to make sure that it is accessible for everyone.
Good, because they say that, you know, from a diversity, a D&I point of view, diversity and inclusivity point of view, that needs to have a seat at the table. You know, so whether that's the senior management table, boardroom table, you know, they need to have a seat at the table and be able to contribute and you know, flag, because it's just not on everyone's radar all the time.
No, I think I'm probably guilty for it, in that I think, obviously the Twitter, they should have thought about it before. But I think when it comes to social media, when I think of accessibility, I think of more of sort of accessibility to sort of buildings and events and that type of thing. I don't necessarily think of it as being sort of user friendly for social media platforms and that type of thing. And obviously Facebook, like I said, have sort of already looked into that and are working on that, and LinkedIn have been doing something similar. But I think it's important, well, it's always been important, but it's especially important now to make sure that everything is accessible to everyone. Sort of, I know, Amanda, you're very interested in sort of inclusivity and all that sort of thing, and I think it is important. It's good they're doing it. Like I said, it's good they've obviously picked up on it, but I do think that is something that they should have done before, really. I think it's I mean, it's 2020, they should have really thought about it.
I would agree, you're right, they're kind of keeping up with the Joneses, but you know, well, you should have been doing it anyway. You know, this shouldn't be news, but if they're going to position themselves as being experts on it, then that's no bad thing.
No,
you're right. Auto captions do come through. So this video, certainly when it goes out on Facebook, it does have auto subtitles on it. Because if I have to watch it back to check, you know, timestamps or something we've said, I can see sometimes I think, oh, we need to enunciate more, because it's not always that accurate. So
no.
The auto captions on. So tools that we recommend for subtitles, I know one that our go-to is something called rev.com for subtitles, Do you guys know of any others, or do you prefer any others, or is Rev a go-to for you?
I think, I haven't actually used any others, to be honest. I think that was probably
it's a good one, and it's accurate, I think, as well. So it's a small, you pay a small fee. So if you're doing a video, it transcribes it for you, but you don't have to, go in and edit loads of it. Whereas I've noticed the auto captions aren't hugely accurate, but from a diversity and inclusivity point of view, it's hugely important. If you're not thinking that way now in 2020, you absolutely should.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's good they're doing it, and it's good that they've sort of made an announcement about it, and they're sort of showing people they are being proactive. But yeah, I think they. Yeah, is that a joke, or is that a platform?
I think it's the name of an actual platform. It's limited to 20 minutes on video, though, Paul says. So so if people aren't a big fan of Rev, which is REV, they could use something called a subtitle. I know there's others out there as well, so I'm sure people can express a preference. But from an SEO point of view, so search engine optimization point of view, it's good to have accessibility on there as well. So, if you're not thinking from an inclusivity point of view, make sure everyone can see everything. Even if you're just thinking in kind of a cynical way, from a business development point of view, having all these multiple touch points and kind of adding things like alt tags on images, for example, Mark, that's that has a positive effect on your SEO, doesn't it? So making sure you're ranked higher on Google. I mean, it's still searchable on there, so anything that's relevant like that can definitely help get things picked up. So always add that in. So if you've got a WordPress site, then you can add that in on the images when you're uploading them. And I'm sure on other platforms you've got a space to add that alt tag in, so it can be something descriptive about the image, about the article it's attached to. Just make sure it's something relevant, really.
So the alt tag basically tells, so if someone's visually impaired, it will tell them what the photo is of. So it's like screen readers, it can tell them what the image is showing. But equally, you're telling Google what it is as well. So it's kind of, again, another, keywords or relevant things to get in there, which signposts to Google what you're talking about and other search engines.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, perfect. So that sort of, I suppose, segues talking about websites and branding. I know something else that's popped up for us this week is, we've been talking about branding quite a bit. People coming back, maybe thinking about kind of their brand story, how they position themselves. We've done a lot of websites, or you have done a lot of websites, Mark, over we have. We've done loads. So to be fair, I've copywritten for a lot since March.
It's a team effort.
Always a team effort. But in that time, we have seen some howlers for branding, haven't we?
Yeah, I think the thing is, I was thinking about something earlier before you even mentioned about this, and it's thinking about, sometimes people get caught in a sort of trap of thinking about what they want and not necessarily what they need when it comes to a brand. So the brand has got to be personal, especially for smaller companies, and they've got to like that brand and buy into the visual brand and the whole element of it. But also on the visual side of things, it's got to be something that actually represents the company, the sector, whatever, the feel of different things. So yeah, we've seen a few different things like that. I mean, I've seen loads over the years where it just doesn't work for people, and you've got to try and coax people into thinking, actually, if this is the reason why you wouldn't do that, but you would do this. But we've had other clients as well, though, that they've had that realization themselves. So we've had a client that they are a female-led business, but they realized that their brand, when they set up, was actually too soft, too almost female for their market. So it wasn't a major thing to just change that, but it was just tweaking colours, tweaking fonts and sort of imagery to actually then more represent, you know, the market that they're selling themselves into. So that was quite a nice easy one to do. But sometimes it, you know, people do sort of start out, especially maybe start to do things themselves, don't quite understand what they're doing, and then they come down the line and it's like, you know, 2-3 years down the line and they've got to have a rebrand. So I always think it's not always possible because everyone hasn't got big budgets, but to try and, you know, from the very start, if you've got that budget to think about it, is try and get it right from the off. So get the building blocks in place, and then, you know, let everything else work from there. So, you know, do your you know, your brand values and what you want to express. Look at the visual side of things, look at the logo design, look at the sort of typefaces you want to use, think about consistency. That's one of my bugbears. So someone will have a lovely website, but it actually looks nothing like anything else that they do. So you'll go onto LinkedIn and there'll be a page on LinkedIn that doesn't match, or they'll hand you a business card and again, there'll be a different font, different color. And it's like that, those kind of things that sort of, you know, we're always looking out to sort of try and help people with, really.
I think something that we've spoken about, Mark, isn't it, about sort of having different shades or different tones within possibly a logo and the branding, so that where it basically gives you more flexibility going forwards, I guess. I guess how you explained it to me is that, say, for instance, you want to take a specific tone or color from that logo and obviously still keep the same font, and it still works with the brand. It's still obvious it's linked to that brand. It's just gives you more freedom, I guess, to sort of play around with it, yet still have the consistency there.
Yeah, I mean, obviously we do that for ourselves, really. So when we designed the very first iteration of the GU logo, it was obviously green and sort of orange, but then as we've sort of diversified, we've added more sort of complementary colours to that, so that we can then use those in different situations. So we might have a purple background on the green umbrella logo for when it's representing the coaching side of things or training, but it's still very much recognisable as the green umbrella logo. The typeface is still the same, shape is still the same, but it's still part of that brand, but it is a different iteration of that logo. So some people might, they perhaps get a bit hung up about saying having a white version of the logo that can be used on a dark colour or something. But those kind of things give you flexibility if you've got that within the logo design itself, to be able to use things across a wide range of, you know, sort of applications. So it's, again, thinking about from the very start. It's hard to imagine how things obviously expand over a number of years, but if you can get things in place, you know, you can think about how things can be used on various sort of platforms. So we always think about, you know, obviously my first thing is always print, so it's got to work in print. For a lot of people, obviously it's got to work online, so that would be a website or on social media. Think about how it works as an avatar on social media. So, you know, you might have a lovely logo, but it's a long, thin logo that doesn't translate to avatars on social medias. So is there a way of taking a part of that logo to make that into an avatar? And also things like clothing for a lot of people, especially for brands, you know, it's got to work on that kind of thing. So, you know, if you're retail or even us, you know, we have sort of branded clothing and things. So again, when things are designed, things can't be, you know, designed in a way that won't work in all those different sort of manners, really. Well, we've sort of diversified from brand to sort of a print sort of thing there, but it's all, to me, it's all relevant and all part of the thought process anyway.
I think it's important, like you said. I mean, obviously not everybody has the budget, but for me personally, if I was to start up a new business, I'd want to really focus on the branding and everything from the beginning, so that you don't have to have that rebrand like 2 or 3 years down the line. I think it's important to have that, like you said, to make sure that that is something that you can sort of use on different platforms and something that's going to work across social media and clothing, yet still linked to the brand. I think if you can, obviously I'm a bit biased, but I think it's budget worth spending. If you have that budget there, I think it's worth investing in that, because if you don't have a good brand and you don't have a good logo or a good website, then you're not really, in my opinion, getting off to the best start. It's not going to give the best
impression.
Absolutely. It's the foundations, isn't it? You know, and if you do not have those foundations in place, everything you build on top will just fall down.
Yeah, exactly. And it makes it more difficult, I think, because of Mark said, if you don't have that sort of expertise there, or even that a little bit of knowledge, like obviously Mark's our expert here, but we all have like a little bit of knowledge about branding. And if we don't, obviously we can go to Mark. So we do have sort of some information about it. And I can sort of look at a logo and a brand and sort of see if I think that if it's consistent, if it works well, I can see if I think it's going to work across different platforms. And I think sort of, I don't know, if somebody has that knowledge as a customer, if I see a brand, two companies sort of providing the similar services, one has a very consistent professional looking brand and the other one doesn't, I'm going to be naturally more drawn to the company that I think looks more professional from the beginning.
It is one of those things. That's a visual thing, and people are drawn to certain things, and obviously that's part of marketing. Unfortunately, it doesn't mean to say that, you know, one is better than the other in terms of whatever service is being delivered. But if you're trying to sell yourself, you've got to have those sort of things in place. You know, like you say, if you saw something from one company that was doing exactly the same thing, but it had been, professionally designed. They've got, nice color schemes, logos, etc., nice imagery, and then, something that's perhaps just been printed in black and white on a photocopier. What is going to sway you, to actually go and use that company? That's probably an extreme sort of example, but those little sort of subtleties, that people don't necessarily think about. They think, well, I've got to get my name out there, I've got to do this, but actually sometimes just take a bit of time and get it right. And we had one the other week where, to be fair, the client had changed their mind at the very last minute in terms of an element of their brand, including the logo. But they said, no, actually, I want to get this right before we launch it. And it was the right thing to do in the end. We'd spent a lot of time on the other stuff, and they actually appreciated that. But to then, right, okay, actually, we want to change some bits on that, change it so it's ready and right for when we launch. And they were happy, and now they've got the brand and the company that they want to promote.
I think it's an important point about taking your time, because a lot of people, when they do set up a new business or there's a new startup, and they think they're obviously really excited, really passionate, they just want to get it going. And therefore, sometimes they might skip corners on that sort of thing just to get it out there, because they think, oh, I need to obviously start making these sales. I just need to get something out. But sometimes it is worth just taking that step back and thinking, is everything actually ready? Is everything going to look professional? Is everything going to be on brand? Are we ready to launch? Are we ready to launch this? And obviously in that instance, they weren't. They realised themselves that they weren't quite ready. But I think it's important. I think it's definitely something. Maybe again, because I'm learning from Mark. I'm all into this stuff now. So I'm like, that's rubbish. But no, I think it's important. I do. I think if something doesn't look professional, then I'm automatically drawn away from it a little bit.
Yeah, I don't think you'd be alone in that. There's a lot to be said for what we call reassurance marketing, isn't there? So, and again, I think, Christina and I were talking offline about how she'd had a conversation with someone who said, I don't actually think you need to necessarily have a website now, because, if you put in Google, you'll come up with maybe your LinkedIn company page, your Facebook page, company's house. And we were both like, well, that's ludicrous. That's just a baseline. From a reassurance point of view, it's expected now for companies, if they're going to look professional, to have a website, to have a Facebook page, whether they actively market through it. In the same way, our approach to Instagram at Green Umbrella is we are expected to be on there because of the work that we do. But we don't have the time, resource, or inclination really to do proactive marketing through it. We use it, we promote, and we engage with people, but we don't spend hours on Instagram.
No, I think like as Christina sort of says, it's our main target audience isn't on Instagram. Our main target audience is sort of Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn, and that's therefore where we spend the majority of our time. But as you said, we are a social media, we're a marketing agency, so we are expected to be on Instagram.
Yeah.
Therefore, we use it, but we don't have as much of a, I guess, strategy behind that as we maybe would on Facebook or LinkedIn.
Yeah. So we've had Arian, I hope I'm getting the pronunciation right there, saying that the brands that we create have to work at any size and any medium. That's the new standard. And that's true, I suppose. You know, and Mark, when you're doing design work, there is a lot to think. You know, what you were just saying, there's so much to think about. But it's not necessarily, you know, that's why people use a designer, or they use their marketing team, or use a third party like us, because they need to focus on the day-to-day. So it's kind of our job, or the marketer's job, to ask the right questions and know that you can translate that design, or to be able to say, that's just not going to work, or those colors don't work, or that logo looks awful.
It is, yeah. It's thinking about some of the practical things, like we said about it, like Arian said, about different sizes and different mediums, and then it's thinking about, you know, we've all seen logos with, you know, very small text on, which, you know, perhaps work online. Again, you know, on a website you can do stuff, but again, if you try and print it on a business card, it's, you know, it's illegible. So it's thinking about those practical things as well. I mean, I used to get bogged down with it years ago. I used to be a right geek with, you know, what font sizes should be used and all that sort of thing. But I still think about it because, you know, it's thinking about what the end product is going to look like, and is it fit for purpose at the end of the day. So you know, you can have certain things that look amazing, but they don't actually work. So it has to be a combination of both when it comes to like the visual identity and things like that. Yeah,
and that visual identity and branding. There needs to be a message to market match, I suppose, so that the image that you're putting out there has to match the, you know, your target audience and the audience that you're serving.
Yeah,
because they can be quite different, can't they? So, you know, sorry, Mark, go ahead.
No, it's just something that just popped into my mind. One of my mates shared something on Instagram the other day, and he's not a designer or anything, but he obviously knows the score, and it was a photo of a sign that someone had printed out in an office somewhere and stuck on a door for some reason, and the sign had been printed in every designer's favourite font, Comic Sans, which should only be used very sparingly and in certain circumstances. But then someone had actually scrawled on this note, a note onto this sign saying, "We're a Fortune 500 company, not a creche. Do not use Comic Sans."
Yeah.
So it's again thinking about what is representative of your company and sector, you know, what you do, etc.
Yeah. I just have to share this comment as well in speech marks that Mark said he used to be a right geek in quotation marks. So,
okay, all right, yeah.
Gosh, isn't it? We still love you, Mark, geek or not geek. We've all got a bit of geekery around us. I
think you've got to have a bit of geekery in our game.
Yes, exactly. The branding thing, as you say, it needs to work. So, you know, we are, you know, the Green Umbrella brand. We've got our giraffe. We've got our bright colours. That really works for us. It wouldn't necessarily work if we were, you know, an agency that niched in corporate services or financial supply or cybersecurity or something like that.
Yeah.
You know, and we're lucky that we've worked with and are working with some people who've got a lovely brand and thread that's running through it. But one thing that's also made us have a bit of a chuckle this week is some unfortunate typos and designs as well. So I just had to share some that I'd seen. So because you can get the branding right, but if you've got an unfortunate typo in there as well, it really lets it down. And I'm sure people have seen these. Some of them are what they call NSFW, so not suitable for work. So if you do want a bit of a giggle, offline people, I would say go and Google unfortunate logo mistakes. So I don't think I can share them, but some of them.
You just reminded me, Amanda. There was one that Jane got? I don't think it was suitable for this, but it was very rude, and it was something they'd put something in the in the header, or it'd cut off something in the header of the email.
Yeah,
Do you remember that?
Yeah, I can't remember what it was.
It was some hands. It was some hands holding some soil.
Oh, right.
And I can't remember what it looked like, but you couldn't tell. You couldn't tell what, because we all kind of were looking at it from different angles, going.
I just. That is why it's important to proofread and then proofread again.
And let someone else look at it.
Always.
Yeah.
Always. So let me just share with you a couple, and I'd be really interested to hear if anybody watching has made an embarrassing mistake in in their marketing, left out a word, anything like that. So I'm going to share my screen. Hang on 1 second. There we go. So we've got a few here. Some of them aren't typos. Some are just bad grammar. So we've got quite a high profile one from Reebok. Not everything needs to be done in a New York minute.
I just don't understand how people can miss this. I'm sorry, but there must have been more than one person checking that. And to me, I think that's so obvious. And to then print it, that looks like a billboard.
Yeah, it looks like
how
it's
did
in
nobody notice it? The tube wasn't.
Yeah, underground, metro, whatever it would be if it's in the States. I mean, the imagine more snacks than you can imagine is just, well, it's unimaginable, isn't it? I mean, it's not a typo, but it's just kind of, cripes, come up with something more creative. But again, and this one, ASOS, this was quite a high profile one. And I'm surprised you didn't know about this, Emily. Not that I'm saying that it's right up your street.
I'm a fashionista, and I also love trending products.
Exactly.
No, to be fair, I didn't, because you showed me this just before we went online, didn't we? Or went live, sorry. And I didn't know about that, and I'm shocked and disappointed.
So, but they printed, so I think it was about 20,000 of these bags and packaging. And again, I think a lot of it comes down to how you handle it afterwards. So, what did the brand do? So they almost turned those, for ASOS, turned them into collectibles. Yeah. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen.
You could have had one, Emily, and you didn't know.
I might have, to be fair. It's probably likely. That reminds me, Amanda, there was a jumper this Christmas in Fat Face, I want to say. And the jumper had sort of baubles on it, which looked a bit rude. Anyway, they dealt with that very well. They sent out an email, I believe, because Jane, of course, Jane gets the emails. They sent out an email, I believe, basically sort of making a joke out of it, and they just played to it, and it worked really well for them. So it got them in it got them quite a lot of media attention, really. So it did work well. So they sort of managed to turn something that could have been really embarrassing around into something that was probably quite beneficial for them, because a lot of people were talking about it. I went in, and I didn't go in on purpose, but I did go in and I saw it, and then I was telling my partner about it.
Yeah,
it was
so
it creates
a bit of
conversation, and exactly. So I think, as you said, it's if you make these mistakes, it's how you deal with them, and you can turn it around, and like ASOS did.
And I think it's the amount of companies. And I've had a brochure that was sent to me by an agency I used many years ago in a role I was doing, who leave the L out of public. So very public events that people are going to, or they're making a public announcement. It has a very different meaning when you leave that all important L out. So and I don't think they would be the first to do it, and I'm sure they won't be the last as well. So so I think our message is with branding, speak to a pro, and wording, for goodness sake, get it proofread. Get as many eyeballs as you possibly can.
Yeah, I think so, definitely, to avoid that. And if you do make a mistake, just try and turn it around and
make light of it. I mean, sometimes it's a contextual mistake, isn't it? Brands will put an ad out that just misses the mark or leaves a bad taste in your mouth, whether that's from they've missed a political statement. So Pepsi had quite a high profile one a couple of years ago. But if it's a typo like that, or genuine error, you can turn it into a positive.
Yeah.
So
if you're clever about it.
Absolutely.
Speak to Amanda for top tips. No pressure.
And if you fancy a bit of a giggle after this, Go look at unfortunate logo errors. So, or another one that always used to make me laugh was website addresses that could be read in different ways that were quite fun. So, a company that sold a lot of promotional pens. So their company was called Pen Island. So just imagine that written down for yourself. And on that note,
I think we should wrap this up.
Think about adding a hyphen into your URL.
Absolutely, yes. So there is a lot to think about when it comes to branding and design.
Yeah.
Fabulous. Any more, guys? Anything we need to add?
I don't think so. No. I think we've done a reasonable job. Hopefully Christine will be proud.
I'm sure she will be, as if she would be anything but with us. So thank you to everybody for joining in and commenting. Thank you to Paul. Thank you to Arian and people on LinkedIn who watched. Join us again next week. We'll be here 12 o'clock as usual on Facebook and on Christina's LinkedIn profile. We'll be back with more of the gang, hopefully a mystery guest next week as well. So keep looking at our stream to find out who will be joining us. Same time next Thursday. And we'll see you all soon.
Bye.
Bye.